Welcome back. Now, we've explored how modern slavery exists in the food and fishing industries and the fashion industry, but today we're going to address another area where modern slavery is quite a major problem and permeates all throughout society, and especially the digital world, and that is pornography. Now, this is quite a taboo topic, isn't it, Megan?
Yeah, pornography can definitely be a tricky issue to discuss openly due to, the stigma, the awkwardness, and shame surrounding it, especially in the church. But the truth is, modern slavery in the form of sex trafficking is so closely linked to the porn industry that talking about it without addressing, the prevalence and the harms of pornography in our culture would be leaving out a major piece of this destructive puzzle.
So let's start right at the beginning. What are the major links between pornography and modern slavery?
Yeah, so there's quite a few. So some of these links are psychological, such as evidence that individuals who are exposed to pornography are less compassionate towards victims of sexual abuse and exploitation. Others are instrumental, whereby pornography is the, sort of like training manual used to groom victims of trafficking, and is almost always where traffickers and buyers of commercial sex will get their ideas. This is the link that inevitably brings modern slavery into every single porn consumer's life. So it's this inconvenient truth that sex trafficking and pornography are actually often the same thing.
And it's wild how massive the industry is. I read that in 2015, the porn industry was worth an estimated $97 billion.
Yeah, it's very lucrative, and because of the earning potential, many traffickers choose to further capitalize on this demand and sell these explicit videos and images of those victims to porn sites. One study actually showed that in 9 countries, roughly half of trafficked women and girls said that they were recorded while being illegally sold for sex, and that these videos were proliferated online through leading porn sites. And with the widespread increase, of free porn on the internet, these videos and images of exploited victims are indistinguishable and inevitably reach unaware and unsuspecting customers and viewers. So essentially, it's this collective demand and the clicks to pornographic content that directly fuel the demand for sex trafficking and slavery.
I'd almost imagine that for some people there's a justification that, oh no, this porn this is fine, and there's kind of like, it's distinguishable which porn is okay and which isn't, right? But I'd imagine that's not quite the case, where major porn studios and streaming sites aren't exempt from this.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, those leading sites are not exempt. So in fact, there are endless research studies and legal battles that evidence that there are high amounts of coercion and severe violence and rape and abuse in pornography produced in these professional studios, and many instances of which are labeled as consensual.
So these instances that are labeled consensual, I've heard that it's a common misconception that if someone gets paid for their work and then goes home at the end of the day, it's not considered sex trafficking per se. But that's not true, is it?
Yeah, that's a huge misconception. It's really great that you point that out. As we've already explored in this series, the UN defines people trafficking as the recruitment of a person by deceptive, coercive, or other improper means for the purpose of exploiting that person, and states it is a crime committed at the expense of victims who are robbed of their dignity and freedom. So whether a person initially consented to a situation and whether or not they are paid is irrelevant when there is deception followed by acts of force, fraud, and coercion. So how free to leave is someone really if they're actively threatened to complete the job that is far different from what they initially signed up for.
I'd imagine once it's out there, there's obviously quite a lot of social taboo or stigma to kind of just freely talk about it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me, what happens if you know someone that has a video that's gone up online? What can one do about it, and if they haven't consented to it?
Yeah, so history shows us that it's an extremely difficult, lengthy legal battle to get a video removed, and most times it's never removed, it stays there forever. And for example, there have been countless cases of sexual assault survivors, many of whom were teenagers and even children, discovering that their assault had been filmed and uploaded to leading porn sites. And when these victims contacted the site begging for these videos to be removed, they were either ignored or just sent an automated email response. And for many of these survivors, these videos have never been taken down.
Man, this is such a heavy topic, right? It's so upsetting and just frankly hard to talk about, right? But I guess it's so important to talk about. Because I saw a piece of research recently that, the numbers are just increasing. People are seeing porn younger, they're seeing more of it. It's quite crazy to think about that every year this is just getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, exposure is happening younger and younger. The largest research study to date found that the majority of kids are exposed to porn between the ages of 11 and 13, with some as young as 7.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. And in this research, actually, 75% of the parents of the kids surveyed were completely unaware that their kid had watched porn. And unsurprisingly, this age is dropping as digital technology increases, because we all have, phones at the end of our fingertips. And the really scary part is research is showing that this exposure not only, chemically changes the brain, but imposes a really deeply altered view of sex at a very early age, perpetuating this culture that fuels sexual exploitation and accepts the commodification of some of the worst forms of abuse.
So not only is it happening at a younger age, we've got greater access to it, it just feels like there's no solution. What is the solution? How do you as a father of 3 young kids, and they're going to be growing up into this world? What's the solution here?
Yeah, the bottom line really is we need a culture change. The part of our culture that normalizes consuming commercialized sex disdains the environment needed for the sex trafficking industry to exist. So our society has actively contributed to the growth of an entire industry that profits off of recordings of people's pain and suffering, really. And alongside this, broken relationships between men and women and extremely warped views of sexuality lead to the dehumanization and the commodification of people. And this really just reduces an individual created in the image of God down to a product to be exploited and sold to people on the internet. And
that may be one of the keys, right? Is essentially restoring people's humanity in the way we view them as a daughter or a son or a father or a mother, rather than these kind of digital products that people get to enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. And probably the biggest way we can reduce our contribution to modern day slavery in our everyday life is to not watch any form of pornography and to not contribute to this demand, and to instead respect the dignity and the value of women and men.
Because I've often heard the argument, well, some porn's okay, or if we both consent to it, it's fine. But I guess what you're saying is, well, how do you know that porn hasn't exploited someone in its making?
Yeah, and as we talked about, there's just really no way to know.
Yeah.
So literally the only safeguard is to just not watch it altogether.
And surely that doesn't just stop at, watching pornography, but in the way we speak about others and, making sure that our language and behaviors don't degrade, right?
Exactly. So this may be as simple as not laughing at a demeaning joke your colleague makes, or even, calling them out on it. Or may mean having hard conversations with your friends or your family, and especially your children, about the harmful effects of consuming pornography and its connection to modern slavery. It's really uncomfortable, but as we've been talking about, pornography is permeating our culture rapidly, and we can't pretend like it's not, because the cost of ignoring its potential presence in the lives of the people around us is just way too high.
Now, practically speaking, technology is everywhere. Right, so it's on my iPad, it's on my phone, my computer, my kids iPhones or whatever. How do we stop pornography entering our home? How do we safeguard our homes?
This is a great question, and we know this is increasingly harder to do. Practically, this looks like using features to prevent accidental exposure on our own devices and our children's, such as content control restrictions on cell phones, laptops, and even Wi-Fi. There are great features that help with this, but it's really just a matter of taking the time to learn about them and to learn how to use them effectively.
So ultimately, as we've discussed, once again, it just comes down to us actually taking responsibility and action in our own lives, right?
Yep, you've got it. If a person is repulsed by sex trafficking, yet continues to engage with the very industry that sustains it, then aren't they complicit in fueling the very injustice they're trying to end?
This is a really heavy one, but I think it's an amazing one to talk about. So thank you so much, Morgan. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you found that as challenging as I did. And I hope that you've enjoyed this series of videos and that you come away informed, empowered, and ready to take action in your own lives, but in the conversations you have with those around you. If we are going to change this, it's going to require something from all of us, right? Doesn't matter how small the change, we're all going to have to take action. We can't just talk about it. We've actually got to change the way we live our lives. And we can do it. As we discussed with Dale, it is set in motion, there is justice waiting. And for those people who are currently enslaved around the world, our decisions and our choices may mean freedom, may change their lives, and together we can change this, right? And once again, thank you for joining us. If you want to keep it connected with the work that Tearfund is doing in this space, please check out our website, tearfund.org.nz. Thank you, Morgan, and thanks again.